It's good. I mean, the best part about footballers is, I mean, it's a people. It's a people thing, and that's kind of why I stuck around. I've been around them 4 or 5 years. So, um, yeah, it's fun that I get to focus on just one thing now, and then really set them up to, do what they're really good at. So I'm loving it. I'm 3 weeks in, and it's given me a lot more time with my family too, because I was kind of working two things at the same time. So I'm loving it.
That's awesome. What exactly so you're just writing the show sheets, or you're organizing
Yep.
all the content, or what's up?
Yeah. So my role's editor and content manager. So all of our shows, and then everything on the website. And when you get like the ultimate draft kit and the dynasty pass, like all the written stuff and all the, charts and everything else, that's me behind the scenes getting to work with Mike and some of the other guys. But so, yeah, it's a sweet little gig. It's a sweet setup. I'm East Coast and they're Phoenix. So I usually get to work before they even wake up.
Wait, where are you at?
I'm Atlanta and they're
cool.
Phoenix.
I got you, man. Yeah, we're over here. I'm in Virginia Beach. Mike's up in what, Boston, right? Massachusetts?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
He's a Patriots fan.
Oh, don't tell me you're a Falcons fan. Do I have to apologize when we right out of the gate? Is that how this is going to work?
I the other day I said I've moved beyond just like certain levels of like grief, the different stages. So I'm at bargaining now, where I'm actually saying it's like, it's good. No, it's good for us.
It's a learning thing for everybody. Oh, it's weird to have two people on the same show. Like one was like the best day of their life, and one was like the worst. It's strange, but we'll make it work.
I mean, texting people when it was 28-3 and just feeling like, we're gonna do this. Like, we're really gonna do this.
Oh, I'll tell you, I forget who it was on the Falcons. It was one of the players, because they were celebrating, and they showed like the the video afterwards. And one of the defensive players is like, "Hey, calm it down. They still have Tom Brady." I was like, "Oh, dang! How do you see that coming?"
And we have really conservative, crappy play calling, which we just wasted the third and fourth quarter. You look at those drives, you watch it back. It's so bad.
Oh, it was there's no doubt that the Falcons were the better team, and then they did that play not to lose situation that you hate to see, but it seems like every coach falls into that trap at some point.
For sure.
All right, you guys ready to kick the show off?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Steffi Smalls and Chase Vernon.
What is up, guys? Welcome on to another episode of, yes, that's right, Fantasy Intervention. And it feels like a flashback, man. It feels like a flashback right now. We got Mike in the house. What's going on, Mike?
What's up, buddy? How we doing?
God, man, I'm stoked to have you on. This is where it all started, right? Well, it started with me, but the whole team, the whole Wednesday night thing started with Mike and I back, early on in the football season, and completely kicked off. Got way bigger than we ever dreamed would have happened. So it's kind of like a flashback, man. Having you on is great. Love it. And we have special guest on, the content manager of the Fantasy Footballers. Kyle, I'm not even going to try to attempt to say your last name, so go ahead and hit us with it.
Yeah, no, Borgononi. No, it usually there's a pause right there.
Ah, love it, man. So tell us, what you're doing over there, how we know you, what your Twitter handle is, what you got going on behind the scenes. Give us some insight.
For sure. No, I know you've had some heavy hitters recently, and I know you've had Mike earlier. You had Jason. So I'm going to try to give you a little bit of footballers. Same kind of brand, same kind of life. But yeah, my role with the footballers is editor in chief, content manager. I basically get to set the guys up for success. So every single show, you guys listen, whenever they read the stats or the organization, it's me and Brooks getting to put that together. So tomorrow, the guys recorded today, but yeah, tomorrow we'll have a shocking stats episode. And that was fun for me just to fill that out, just throw out some really wild out there stats. The guys kind of discuss it. So yeah, I love what I get to do. Love that, not just being a leader in the space, but as people. I mean, they're just great people that I think a lot of people look up to and look up to in the fantasy football space, but like they really are the real deal. And yeah, it's been a great little ride for me over these last 4 or 5 years with them. And then a couple of weeks ago, getting that call for Fantasy Sports Article of the Year for FSWA. So it's been a sweet little ride for me.
That's sick, man. I didn't see that. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, that's really badass, actually. I know it's got to be fun over there working with those guys. And obviously you said that you're not actually you're not, on location with them, you're East Coast. So, how is that for you? Like, trying to communicate with them and trying to, have the team on the same page. Does it make a difference, or are you pretty much just doing everything that you're doing on a normal basis? Just not in office.
East Coast is really the Beast Coast. I love it. I love East Coast. I don't understand how people live in the past, like if you're on West Coast, you're just living in the past. We've already done that part of the day. So,
I love that. I love that.
Like, you guys are East Coast. You get it. Like you watch TV and people are like, yeah, I watched, Sunday morning football at 10 a.m. We're like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. But, if we're sitting there talking about it, we got to give a shout out to our friend Brad over there, who's actually part of our team at Joiner Circle _. He's in Australia. So everything he's doing is on, or we're doing is on his Monday, essentially. We're doing everything pretty much a day behind. So
that's wild. No, yeah, it works out well for our team, where before they even wake up, I get to work on a lot of our show docs, work on stuff for the website and building out our ultimate draft kit. And yeah, I enjoy setting other people up. Like, I mean, I do stuff on the mic, I do our DFS pod, but for me, it's like setting those three up to just kill it and just be themselves is super fun.
Now, before we dive into this show, right, we're going to talk about quarterbacks, because quarterbacks are a hot topic right now. I mean, we're talking about rumors every other day about quarterbacks. And I want to dive into quarterbacks without, being too official about it. I want to have some fun with it. We'll go over some news real quick, nothing crazy. But before we do, I need to give a huge shout out to our sponsor. It's our number one sponsor. It's Pins. It's Pins from Fantasy Intervention. Oh, yes. Get excited for some pins, guys. You guys can go pick them up at our store. Yes, that's right. At our store, fantasyintervention.com. Go get some gear and go pick yourself up a pin. Plus, we also have, T-shirts. We have sweatshirts provided by Viridian Global, along with stickers. Yes, Mike, we have stickers now. We've got stickers.
Oh, I got a Fantasy Intervention sticker right behind me here. Yeah, already.
Wait, you're missing on a Kool-Aid Man sticker, bro.
I will get on that.
And we have koozies and we have pins. Did you hear? We have pins.
Wow. All right, so we're gonna do the whole flea market pitch in the lag. I love it. So what I got to tell you, Chase, my favorite thing about when we planned on doing this show 7 minutes ago when you asked me. Was you told me that Kyle's coming on the show and we're going to do quarterbacks. And what I found hilarious is that Kyle and I have only interacted once before. And where we interacted was on the QB lists way too early mock draft. I think, what was that, Kyle? Maybe 3 weeks ago. Right. We did that one. And so the person he brought on to the QB show is the person who put the least amount of value into the quarterback position for that draft. So the irony is not lost here. Just taking a look back, what was it? Tannehill, I think.
Yeah, Tannehill just at as late as I could.
Oh man, I was dying. So we took such different approaches. I went Kelsey right out of the gate and apparently rocked the entire draft because everyone's freaking out that I would take the biggest position advantage at 4. But just looking back at the draft there, going Hopkins and Chubb at the corner. But I mean, seeing Tannehill that late, I was almost depressed that I took a quarterback early. I mean, that was a steal. But I just found that funny that the person that valued quarterbacks least is the guy we brought in for the quarterback show. So here we go.
Oh man, I love it. Now, real quick, guys, we're going to go to our actual sponsor commercial, which is brought to you by Mike, by the way. We're going to go into this commercial. So go ahead and go out there and reshare, all the content that you possibly can. Tell your friends that we're on live with, of course, Kyle from Fantasy Footballers. and let's get some fans in here in the comments. Let's go.
Come prop up on Thrive Fantasy this season. Thrive Fantasy is a daily fantasy show app for player props. They've eliminated the need to do countless hours of research because they only ask you about the top tier athletes. Choose 10 out of the 20 player props for the NFL options to build your lineup. Use promo code CIRCLE when you sign up today, and you will receive an instant match bonus up to $50 on your first deposit of 20 or more. For those of you who struggle at math, that would mean if you deposit 20, you will get 40, 30 gives you 60, 40 gives you 80, all the way up to that $50, $100 bonus. Again, use promo code CIRCLE to get that bonus. Download Thrive Fantasy on the App Store today or Play Store, or by visiting their website, www.thrivefantasy.com. Sign up and hashtag prop up today.
Absolutely love it, Mike. Every time. It's like, oh man, sweet, sweet nothings into my ears, what you're whispering every time I hear that promo. So let's go ahead and let's kick off this show. We got quarterbacks on the docket, and we're going to start out with Kyle, of course, because Kyle, we got Wentz, we got Watson, right? Two hot names right now, so hot. And the reality is, it's like, I don't know if Watson is going to get moved. We don't know if Wentz is going to get moved, but that's what they're saying. That's the rumors, right? And Watson's linked to the Panthers. He's linked to the Dolphins, among other teams, right? And then we have Wentz linked to the Colts and the Bears. I think there's still some other teams in there who could, make plays for both. Washington, if the Texans wanted to make, or if Washington wanted to make an offer, they have the defensive assets in order to do that. I was talking about it a couple weeks ago where I felt like if they try to put together a package with maybe Ryan Kerrigan, one of their young studs, maybe, I don't know, Deron Payne, something on those lines, along with the first-round pick, it could happen. So is the best fit for you, Kyle? Is the best fit for you Watson in Carolina? Is it Watson with the Dolphins? Where's the best fit for you when it comes to Deshaun Watson?
Yeah, honestly, when you look at just different cap situations, like I would love the Panthers as just a dream spot. I just cannot see them with what's on the books. I mean, they have another year with Teddy Bridgewater. Like it's just not he's not cuttable right now. They're going to have to pay DJ Moore in just a hot second. I think that they're going to use their young core. They're going to focus on, defense. Maybe they'll get their quarterback this year in the draft. So the Panthers aren't my favorite spot for Watson. Really it's Miami or the Jets because they have the draft capital to make it happen. And with the Jets, I just think your team is dying for a makeover and for some people to want to watch their team. I'm like, who would you want to watch on the Jets if you're a fan right now? So marketability is a thing. New York, I think that's a big deal.
I kind of like that one. I haven't taken that one into account as much, but I actually like that one if they move Darnold to a different team, not to the Houston Texans. Now
well, go ahead, Cal.
I'll just say if I was the Jets, I wouldn't do this because they're going to have to overpay. I honestly, if you're just asking me, I think most teams won't pay what the Texans are wanting because the Texans are in such a bad shape as a franchise. I think if other franchises are smart, they'll just look at the Texans and say, you guys are screwed. Your best player doesn't want to play for you. Your organization is just from the top
So
down, not
depressing.
looking very good. So to me, I think most teams are just going to watch them burn. And I don't think he's going to be moved if you're going to ask me right now, but I like the Jets as probably my favorite landing spot if I had to pick one.
Mike, you want to hop on this?
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually right with you, Kyle. I was on P2W Fantasy about a month ago, and the prediction that I made was Darnold 2 and 23 for Watson being that final package. The reason why I think Darnold is when you look at Caserio, the Patriots regime were known to covet Darnold. Now, I don't know if that was Belichick or if that was Caserio. And I think what you're looking at is what it comes down to is what does Houston think of really the Fields Wilson combo at 2? Do they think that's a superstar? Because if not, that teams moving up to 2, they'll allow you to flip that into that 3 first-round pick package that they've said to be coveting. Because the thing that people are looking at when I hear, 3 first-round picks, like even if you look at Carolina, right, at number 8, the cost to go from 8 to 2 in this draft would be another first-round pick. So really that number 2 pick is 2 first if you're looking at it from those optics. Same with Washington. So I'm with you, Kyle. When you really take a look at the draft capital, you're looking at that number 2 or that number 3 pick. You want to get that done. And 3 coupled with, I believe, don't hold me to this, but I believe it was 18 was Miami's second pick, or 2 and 23. When you do the math, really comes out fairly equitable. Now, what the difference is the difference in value between Tua and Sam Darnold. Tua obviously having a higher value, but everything I'm seeing out of Miami shows that they're committed to Tua. I think they're going to eventually go Devonta Smith to pair with them at number 3. I think they went to the Senior Bowl, wanted to get Smith there. There's really no reason for Smith to play in the Senior Bowl unless there's some kind of connection he's looking for. I think those coaches made that. So I think ultimately it's the Jets. I think that package actually works for both teams because the Jets have draft capital going into the 2nd and 3rd round as well. And like you said, for Watson, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Because number one, there's not terrible weapons. I mean, you're talking Mims, you're talking Perryman possibly coming back, you're talking Crowder possibly coming back in Herndon. But the biggest thing for Watson, why he would accept that deal, is because the marketability. You covered that. It's New York, right? He would be the play in New York. He would be the marketable face of New York football at that point in the city, obviously, save for Josh Allen. So I love that fit. I think eventually they make the connection because, Kyle, to your point, Houston's a disaster. Well, so are the Jets, right? So it's kind of like that misery loves company connection where they both kind of need each other. So I feel like they're the 2 ugly teams at the end of the night at the bar, staring at each other at 2 a.m, saying, well, you want to dance? Because no one else is asking, right? Like that's kind of how I see the connection happening. So I'm holding firm that I still think that'll be the return. I think they'd meet in the middle. That 2-23 and Darnold makes sense. If they don't love Darnold, I think you can flip him for a second to increase that package. But somehow I think those are the assets that make it happen.
I don't know if he fits that scheme necessarily. And I don't know if the Jets want to start out their tenure with the contract that Saleh got, going with an already, proven veteran essentially as a quarterback instead of trying to build, from scratch and see what they have on their team that already exists. It's sitting there and we look at how, Kyle Shanahan has built his team and how how he's probably rubbed off on Saleh along with the offensive coordinator who I'm drawing a blank on. And I can't look it up because if I do, I'm afraid my computer will just blow up. So essentially, I don't know if that's the route the Jets want to go, but I don't hate it. I would just much rather, if they felt like they needed a quarterback, go with Justin Fields. But what I was bringing up earlier was the fact that if they trade Darnold to a different team like the Colts, which is something I really want to see happen, and they get a few draft picks, then they can move number 2 overall over to the Texans, and the Texans could move in and take Justin Fields and justify it. They'd obviously have to give a little bit more than that, but I would feel really comfortable, with the Texans feeling more confident in that aspect of things. I just don't know if the Jets make that move. For me, I understand the contract issues with the Carolina Panthers, but if anything has taught us anything really, it's the salary cap is almost a myth at this point because of the fact that you can move money in so many different ways. It's absolutely insane what these teams have been able to do. I mean, the Saints are looking at negative $100 million in cap space this year, and yet they do it every single year, right? Mickey Loomis and their cap manager, I don't remember his name. It's like Kai or something, like KHAI or something like that, or maybe it's just KAI. He absolutely destroys myths about salary caps. We look at what they've been able to do over there with the Vikings. Same situation. Look over there at the Eagles, and the Eagles are a lot worse off. They don't always figure it out. But the Eagles are in a very similar spot as to where they still are negative every single year, and yet they figure out a way around it. So there's no way that I think that a salary cap would prohibit him going to the Panthers. It's just what the cost is going to be, and I don't know the Panthers with that long contract are going to be willing to pay that. What's Matt Rule's contract over there, like 10 years or something? Not 10 years, it's like 6 years, I think. It's absolutely it's a very long contract because we wanted him to build the right way. So that, like you brought up earlier, Kyle, I think that they take the 7-year contract. So yeah, he has 6 years left. I think that they take the time to build that up, and that's why I don't think Deshaun Watson goes there. Let's go ahead and, Kyle, do you have anything to add to that, or move on to Carson Wentz?
I'll just say this about the Jets. I it's weird to think of the Jets in the driver's seat in this conversation because they're so bad, but they have the draft capital. And then being at 2, if they want to keep Darnold, and there's a lot of people in the league, like evaluators that still like Darnold, think that like, okay, he's got a chance. I think they're going to end up moving down from 2. I think they're going to keep Darnold. And I think a lot of the conversation is going to be who's going to move up to 2. A lot of people are saying it's Carolina or whatnot. So I think Darnold, is weird to say, but he's a big part of this conversation. And when Saleh took the job, he had to know, like, is this the guy that I want to roll with? And for me, I'd rather them pick one more year at Darnold.
I want them to play with Darnold. I think Darnold's a good quarterback. I want Darnold to go to Indy so bad. Him or Jameis Winston, please go to Indy and go win a Super Bowl because both of them can. Darnold has all the talent in the world, and he has not had the right opportunity. He needs a fresh start, but I think the Jets should still take another shot at him because they are bringing in a brand new organization. Sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, that's good.
So, Mike, did you want to add to it?
No, I think we're going to talk about the quarterback that's going to Indy next, aren't we?
So the reports coming out are saying that the Bears or Carson Wentz doesn't want to go to the Bears. And if he doesn't want to go to the Bears don't want him. So the Eagles might take the 2, second round picks that the Colts supposedly offered. But we've heard rumors since, before the Super Bowl, that this trade was already supposed to happen. Mm-hmm. And we all expected it to happen. And it never happened. So, Mike, we're going to start with you this time. Like, what's happening over there? Because nobody seems to know what's happening. And I don't think you're a beat reporter or anything, but, at least your best guess.
I mean, my best guess is, to be honest, is that you really have a completely fractured organization. I think what you're seeing is essentially very similar to what you've seen with other kind of power struggles between general managers, owners, and coaches, where one party wants to trade Carson Wentz and roll with Jalen Hurts or even possibly pick up somebody in the draft, whereas another party doesn't. And it's almost like if you ever watched that show Love and Listed on HGTV, where like they pit the parties against each other, and it comes down to what could you get? What can you get? So I think what's happening is Roseman's holding up and saying basically, yeah, I'll try to trade Carson Wentz, but I'm not going to give them away. And what you're finding is they're overvaluing the asset. And the question becomes, can Philly go to opening day with both quarterbacks? My belief is they can. I do not think that Jalen Hurts is an NFL caliber quarterback. I've gone on record saying that. The fumbles scare me. What is it, 9 fumbles in a part-time role? That scares the heck out of me.
I think he had 6 interceptions too.
Yeah,
he had 4 or 6. I think it's 6.
Oh, it's a lot. And it's not that he can't get better. It's not that they can't structure around him. I'm just not sure he's ready today. And I've talked about the Alabama quarterbacks across the board looking like they're struggling. That's a juggernaut offense they're coming out of. And when you look at Hurts, he looked like a world beater in Alabama, went to Oklahoma, looked like a good player. But these quarterbacks, Tua came out looking like a world beater. Now they look a little shell-shocked. They look like they're not really reading the NFL game well. So I'd be shocked if Philadelphia wants to turn over the keys to Hurts. Now, the reason they might is because they're a long distance away from the Super Bowl. They ain't winning anyway. But what I think you have is you have a very fractured organization that I would be floored if they took that 2nd and 3rd round pick for Carson Wentz. I think they're going to hold out for more. And if they don't get it, I think they have this new coach, Sarnelli, I believe is how it's pronounced, coming in, who's supposed to be that guru. And I think they're going to try to get him to fix Wentz. So I think really you're going to see a higher package from the Colts than what you've been reported seeing them offering, or he stays. I think those are really the only 2 options right now because there's nobody else out there.
I don't understand the quarterback guru thing, to be honest with you, because, I mean, I understand he had like Jacoby Brissett as quarterback, which wasn't great, but has he developed any major quarterbacks? Am I missing out on something when it comes to that? I mean, Kyle, what's up with that?
Yeah, I could tell you I don't know. I just know that was the rumor, was that they brought him in because they know he needs to work with the quarterback, but I don't see a history. Maybe Kyle, I don't know if you do. I didn't see one. And looking at it, that was all that impressive.
Yeah, and I have a couple opinions. One, spot on with how I feel about Hurts. And I think in the fantasy community, we love him because
yeah.
we love him because he runs. And, he had 68 rushing yards a game in those 4 starts. It's the most ever for a rookie quarterback in 4 starts. I mean, that's ridiculous in terms of per game. But he also had we looked at this the other day. He had the lowest adjusted completion percentage during this span. Like the dude's completing like 52% of his passes.
Bad.
And so long term, let's just, when they get some film on him, I think he's going to be fine for fantasy, and that's going to blur our vision because we love to talk about that. But in terms of real life, I don't think he's ready. And I also think, maybe some of these, offers that we're hearing, where it was so close, 2 weeks ago with the Bears.
Yeah.
They might just be blowing smoke and trying to drive up the price. And I think he does end up in Indy. And I don't know if that's the right move considering, the contract, but I think it just makes, a lot of sense. And maybe there's some groupthink between all of us because we're like, well, we can connect the dots with Indy. But it's weird to say an organization went from two or 3 years ago, like, wow, that is one of the best organizations in the league. Look at how well run they are, to like dysfunctional. Everything's, in the shitter. It's just terrible.
My main concern with Hurts, and I mean, we're talking about Wentz, obviously, and Wentz's landing locations. And honestly, like, I really don't care because I don't think it's going to have that much of an effect on fantasy football. I just don't think it's going to really impact the team to the point where it's like, oh, I got to draft this guy now, or, oh man, I got to stay away from this guy. Like, he's above average. He's a good quarterback, and that's about it. They didn't have an offensive line. They didn't have any wide receivers this year. It was absolutely like, just the worst situation you could possibly imagine outside of Washington every single year with quarterbacks, or the Browns every single year with quarterbacks, and the situations they got put in. So it's something as to where it was a nightmare for any quarterback. And because Jalen Hurts can run, he lit the fantasy community, on fire. So sitting there looking at it, I don't think that Jalen Hurts has the upside that if he is the starting quarterback for the Eagles, that like a Kyler Murray or something has, unless they make a move. But the Eagles aren't in a position to necessarily make moves. Although, like I brought up, it's very, contradictory to what I brought up when it comes to the fact that salary caps, they're non-existent. It's still like they're not going to be able to go out and sign a DeAndre Hopkins or something like that and add that much value to the wide receiver room. Meanwhile, they're limited when it comes to draft picks. Their secondary is porous. Their secondary is brutal. And I don't have the exact numbers in front of me once again, but I did a study, and it was, I believe they had 3 picks for the Colts in the first 3 rounds. Or I'm sorry, they had 6 picks for the Colts in the first, or 7 picks for the Colts in the first 3 rounds in the first 2 years that the regime took over, where Nick Sirianni was the offensive coordinator. And they spent 6 of those on defensive players because the Colts defense was completely obliterated, right? And then it was either defense players or offensive linemen. I think they took 1 skill position player, if that. It might have been like Marlon Mack or something like that. I don't remember. Anyways, moving on to it with Howie Roseman, he does not take offensive skill position players back-to-back years. Like, he wants to have one and let it develop. They just took Jalen Reagor. They need an offensive line. They need help in the secondary. Howie Roseman knows that. He typically drafts defensive players as a whole anyways. So sitting there and looking at Jalen Hurts, like, is his situation going to improve? Probably not. Is his, ceiling going to improve? Probably not. And with running quarterbacks, we've seen this tradition where these defenses start to figure it out. And they start to force running quarterbacks to not be able to run anymore. I mean, we saw with Lamar Jackson that I do believe it was the offensive system that hindered Lamar Jackson, them trying to make him more of a passing quarterback. But either way, sitting there and looking at it, I don't know if Jalen Hurts is going to offer the same upside that a Kyler Murray offered this past year, where he finished out as quarterback 2 or 3 in the fantasy season. With that being said, we've had enough conversation about these two. You guys have probably heard about it on ESPN or whatever, source you listen to constantly. I want to bring up the fact that we have Derek Carr, excuse me. We have Jameis Winston. We have Sam Darnold. We have Jimmy G. We have Cam Newton. We have Jacoby Brissett. We have Andy Dalton. We have Ryan Fitzpatrick, Dak Prescott, Teddy Bridgewater, possibly, Trubisky. These are all going to be switching teams, or there's potential to see all these players switching teams. Is there a certain player in your mind, like I brought up earlier with Sam Darnold or Jameis Winston in Indianapolis, where you want to see these players land and you think it could actually add significant value to their fantasy assets? Like, is there a certain player in the ones that I named where you're like, oh, I have to see him here? shit's gonna light on fire. We'll start out with looks like Daddy's ready to answer. Mike, you ready to go on this one?
Yeah.
What you got?
The answer is Sam Darnold to the 49ers. That will explode both Darnold's value. He will continue to bring up Kittle, Samuel, and Ayuk. I think that's just the perfect fit. I think what you're going to find out is anybody who believes that Adam Gase is the reason why Sam Darnold is struggling, if we get him in that Shanahan offense over in San Francisco, you're going to have your answer. And that's really what we're looking for on Darnold, right? Is he the guy who went number 1 overall, or is he the guy who has been seeing ghosts since that Patriots game where he put up the negative 75 fantasy points? I think to get the answer that we want, Darnold to the 49ers is really the gold for me. Like if that were to work, they've been rumored to him. Obviously, the Patriots have been drooling over Garoppolo, so they have a landing spot there. That kind of quarterback shift with Darnold going out to the West Coast, I think that would be a significant fantasy boost for Darnold. And I think he'll get the most out of those weapons as well. I think that'll be a great fit across the board.
Kyle, you ready for this?
Yeah, and I love that you brought up these names because I don't think we realize how rare it is that there's this much movement at the quarterback position. Like this doesn't happen. And when you look at the draft this year, there's probably 5 quarterbacks that are going to be taken in the first round. But besides that, there's no one else that you would really say maybe a team believes in somebody in the second or third round, but really there's going to be a lot of movement between these guys that you listed. And so I'll just say 2 of the teams that interest me the most. I'll say the Broncos because Drew Lock is just not great at football. He's better than me, but he's just not someone that's going to be able to take a team a step further. And if you think about it, that team, with some competent quarterback play, Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant. I mean, they have a solid group. They just have even somewhat of competent play. I think the Broncos are a fun landing spot for somebody that can just be accurate. I wouldn't say Derek Carr he's accurate. And the Raiders can cut him for basically $2 million. I mean, it's super cheap if they wanted to move on, if John Gruden's kind of grumpy. So that's interesting for just like that standpoint. Another name that would just be fun. I was looking at this list. Let's say Big Ben retires. All right. Throw Jameis on that team and just let him just
I've been talking about that for the full year. They should have signed him last offseason.
Oh, man.
They should have signed him last offseason. He was the perfect replacement. Like with that wide receiver corps, like it is the perfect replacement. I love that.
Yeah. For fantasy, it would be so fun.
I was going to say that for fantasy, is the perfect replacement. He's an awful choice for their style of football, but for fantasy, he'd be a great choice.
I mean, yeah, he doesn't fit the short passing tendencies that they had this past year. That was insane how many short passes they were calling on a regular basis. When you look at average depth of target per player outside of Chase Claypool, it was just weird. Like, I know they didn't have a running game and they were trying to use that as their source of the running game so they could hit Claypool deep, so they could try and get deeper targets to the tight end and open up the middle. But that was just bizarre. But either way, there's not rumors. I think there's more fantasy speculation that Chris Godwin could end up with the Colts.
Mm-hmm.
And that right there, link him back up with Jameis Winston. You have Michael Pittman deep. You got Michael Pittman as like the primary receiver, like Mike Evans, and then you throw in T.Y. Hilton deep. Oh man, go ahead and throw Ertz over there with as a tight end. We'll make it interesting. You could see another superstar offense where Jameis Winston throws for 5,100 yards and was it 33 touchdowns, I believe, led the league, or 36
and 30 picks. Yeah,
30 picks. I think it was 33 and 30. Yeah.
The Colts are just super interesting. Like we've been mentioning with Wentz, their cap situation's great, but if you look at their weapons, all their tight ends could be gone. Mo Alley Cox is restricted, so they'll probably have him back, but they could cut Doyle. Hilton's a free agent. Their roster right now is basically Pittman, Zach Pascal's a restricted free agent. Paris Campbell's always hurt. It's like they could easily be able to add a guy like Chris Godwin, like you said.
They have so much cap space.
Yeah, so they're a fun team because really they're right there in the mix of teams in the AFC.
So before I jump, because I do have to run. This was last second, so I apologize for cutting short. But the one name, Kyle, you got my the juices flowing when you brought up Denver for fantasy. Man, Ryan Fitzpatrick in Denver would be a blast, man. That would Fitzmagic with one last run in Denver would be like amazing. I would have a ball with that because I do think Sutton is the steal of the offseason. If you can get him on your team, people are sleeping on this guy. Absolutely a wide receiver one. And you put Fitzmagic on that team, I would be thrilled. That would be fantasy gold. I don't know how it would do for the actual win-loss. I don't think they're a great team anyway. But for fantasy, that would be just gold. Just 1 year of Fitzpatrick slinging with those weapons would be spectacular.
For sure.
Absolutely love it. All right, Mike, you want to give
Cool,
a
guys.
quick shout out? Or
Yeah,
you gotta go.
You guys know where to find me at Daddy's Home FF on Twitter. Kyle, it's been a blast. I'm glad we could catch up. Haven't talked to you since the draft. So you guys enjoy your time. I'll catch the rest of the replay. And thanks for having me on.
Later, man.
Later.
That was good.
It's kind of funny. He was actually supposed to leave at 8:30. I feel bad for the other show. So we do have a game. We have a game that we want to dive into, and it's about the quarterbacks we just talked about. And we want to see some of these landing spots. You know, we want to see where they could possibly end up. So I decided to create a randomizer with the teams that actually need, people and some of those players. So we'll go ahead and we'll add this over here. And we got these teams over here. So let's go ahead and let's mix it up and go through a randomizer. And we're going to go through the players. I'll put the players on the screen in the comments as we go through it. Oh, where am I? Cool. And let's go. All right. So first up, we have the Giants. And the first quarterback that is on our list is Derek Carr. I actually just put the Giants in here, honestly, to mess with Steffi. I don't think they're getting rid of. Yeah, I literally just put the Giants on here for that. We're going to move on to the next person. Oh, that's funny that we ended up having that one as the first one. Remove the name from the list. We'll go to the second team.
Who needs the Giants?
No, the Giants are just whatever. Just get them out. No, I'm just kidding. If Steph rewatches this, I'm going to die. All right, Derek Carr to the Broncos. Do you like Derek Carr to the Broncos? Do you think it'd be a smart decision? Do you think he can deliver the ball? Like, do you like him better if he's with the Broncos or if he's with the Raiders? Like, where are you falling with this one?
Yeah, and I mentioned a little bit about that earlier because I just think the Broncos need competent play. Like, they're not really asking Carr to win them the game. I actually think they're right there on the cusp. Like, granted, that's a tough division with the Chiefs and the Chargers, but I think the Broncos are right there for like wild card spot. And so with Carr, he's super efficient, and we've run the stat last couple of years, but he's in top 5 last 2 years in terms of third down conversion rate. The year before, he had the most third down completions in the entire league. So that's all you can ask. Like, he gets poo-pooed on a lot in fantasy, and I get it. Like, you want him to take those downfield shots, and I think he would be more equipped than what he had in terms of wide receivers with the Raiders. There is that AFC West, familiarity. So maybe they're just like, no, we play this guy twice a year. We don't want him.
Yeah.
But no, I think that's actually not. I think that's one of my favorite spots for him because he actually has the weapons.
It makes sense. And honestly, the biggest disappointment for me with the Broncos, and I didn't get to talk about it a second ago, was the fact that they didn't run Drew Lock a lot. With Shurmur, he's actually had, close to, I think it's out of the 13 years that he was calling plays, 11 of them, he finished with a top 10 rushing quarterback. Shurmur likes to run his quarterbacks. Like, he likes to get him out of the pocket. He likes to scramble. We saw it with Daniel Jones last year. Daniel Jones again this year. Drew Lock has some wheels on him. And it's kind of funny because I feel like there's like an evolutionary period when it comes to quarterbacks. You have Drew Lock, then you have Justin Herbert, and then you have Trevor Lawrence. Like, that's kind of like the order that I have them in. So essentially, Drew Lock is that poor man's version of Justin Herbert. They both can move. They both have an arm on them. But I think Drew Lock does not understand reading coverages as well. Like, he doesn't process as much, and he also lacks tremendous touch. So essentially, I'm sitting there and looking at Derek Carr being able to run this offense. I think the offense fits him better overall. I just don't know if Derek Carr could, put them over the ledge because the Broncos defense was a shell of itself from the previous years. It just wasn't there. So let's go ahead and let's move on. We have Jameis Winston on the docket next. Let's see where he ends up.
Oh,
The Falcons. I put the Falcons on here just because I think Matt Ryan has 1 year left. I don't
Right.
think they move on from Matt Ryan this year. But the Falcons actually do make a lot of sense. Being able to throw deep to Calvin Ridley. I actually have them taking a wide receiver, possibly. I know it's a little bit of a bold take, but I have them taking a wide receiver if Penei Sewell does not fall to them as their first pick. Jamar Chase makes a lot of sense, essentially, because they do like to load up on their wide receiver room. So Jameis Winston to the Falcons, I kind of like every aspect of this. How do you feel about Jameis Winston going to the Falcons, or do you just completely hate it?
well, so I'll just admit I'm super biased. Obviously, living here in Atlanta, Falcon fan for life. Lots of misery, lots of 7-9 type seasons, but they're familiar with the dude. So obviously they've seen him for a while in the NFC South. You're right. Ryan's going to have at least 1 year. I think his dead cap hit this year is $49 million.
It's not going to
ridiculous.
happen this year. It's going to be next year the following year.
Yeah, for sure. And so a new coaching regime, it's just like things could totally shift. I mean, I hate even saying it. Julio might be off the team in a year, which would make me cry. I love Julio. But with the Falcons, they haven't had competent play in the red zone for a while. And so I think Jameis, I think he can make sense in a backup role. Let's say they don't take a quarterback at pick 4. I think that's what a lot of people are saying. They're going to get Zach Wilson.
I don't get that. I don't think they should do that. How do you feel about that being a fan?
I think we should trade down, but I'm a little bit more shrewd. I don't trust us at all in the draft. If you look at our draft picks, we've hit on Julio and Ridley, but
Grant Lindstrom didn't hit? Grant Lindstrom wasn't a thing, or
it's just been rough in terms of, especially defense. If you look at us on the defensive line, it's been pretty bad recently. But I think with the Falcons, if they trade down, if they want to get Winston as a backup deal right now, because we don't have a backup quarterback, I think that would actually make a ton of sense. And then maybe as a run, if Ryan goes down, or if they just want to transition. But I think it would just be tough knowing that they know this guy so well and they know his tendencies, and they don't think he's probably the long-term solution. So with the new regime, maybe he gets a 1 year deal, but probably not likely.
Dude, come on, man. You don't think that the Falcons are they can't resist adding another first-round pick or former first-round pick to that roster?
That is true.
They're just going to see the pedigree, and they're just going to be like, here's a first-round pick. We got to add him.
For sure. Gurley, Hayden Hurst. We couldn't resist Hayden Hurst right there.
That's too funny. I actually liked Hayden Hurst going in here. I thought that he would play a better role than what Hooper did, or very similar role at least, but that was interesting. All right, so we got the next player on. We got Sam Darnold. You ready for this? You ready?
Yeah, I'm glad we both like Darnold because I like him.
I him too. I think he's a good player.
I just want there to be somebody other than Brashad Perryman to throw the ball to.
All right, here we go. The Panthers.
That's interesting.
It is. I don't think it will ever happen because, like you brought up with Teddy Bridgewater, having that contract 1 year, in order to move off from Teddy Bridgewater, they need to have somebody significant come in, somebody they really believe in. Whether that be a rookie, if Justin Fields, which is potential that he falls to them. We didn't think that Tua and Herbert would make it a 5 and 6 this past year. They both fell. If the Falcons pass and the Jets pass on a quarterback, we could see Justin Fields possibly fall to number 8. So with that being said, outside of a situation of bringing in a rookie, I don't think the Panthers would move on from Teddy Bridgewater unless it was for Deshaun Jackson-esque type player. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, the thing about Darnold, and I've had a couple people mention this, rookie contracts for quarterbacks is what's key to building teams. We've seen teams do this and be successful recently. Yep. But with Darnold, if you're acquiring him, let's say you're trading, a second round pick or whatever it's going to cost to get Darnold, you're also trading for a guy who's going to need a new contract. And that second contract for quarterbacks is where they make the most amount of money. And I just can't see the Panthers saying, all right, we're going to try this guy for a year, and then we're going to pay him over $100 million to be the long-term solution. So, I don't think Darnold makes sense. I think they roll with Teddy, and if they don't get a quarterback, then I think they move on. But yeah, the Panthers are interesting because they had a lot of games where they were close. They had a bunch of 1-score losses. If you look back at their game logs and just what was going on. So they're right there. I mean, their defense is still super young. They get CMC back. I think they'll lock up DJ Moore for a longer contract. So I don't see them wanting Darnold.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me too. I mean, I feel like Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Darnold are very, very similar situations to an extent. All right, we're removing this name from the list. Let me go ahead and throw up the next person. We have Jimmy G.
Ooh.
Now, I think there's really only one place that we could both see him going to, maybe 2 or 3 tops, but let's go ahead and see where he ends up according to the Ninja. By the way, this is brought to you by NamePickerNinja.com.
Ooh.
The Falcons. Oh, man. Wait, did we remove the Falcons from the list?
Yeah, I think you need to remove them.
Oh, we got to do this again. Sorry.
I'll say this on our show, in every single show doc, I always write handsome Jimmy G. And every single time it's Jimmy Graham, I always write either Jimmy Grandpa or Ugly Jimmy.
Oh, no, of course, this is handsome Jimmy G. All right. We have Jimmy G to the Jets. The only way that I see this happening is if a team does want to take on Sam Darnold and they want to take on like a 1-year contract essentially with Jimmy G and have a developmental quarterback in a 2nd-round pick. Like maybe some way in hell Mac Jones falls to the 2nd round, right? And the Jets could take him with the 202. That would make sense to bring in Jimmy G if they got rid of Sam Darnold. Is this a situation you could ever see happening in a million years? Because
I mean,
it's
there
very
is the
limited.
connection with Robert Saleh. So
There is huge connection. And the offensive
maybe
coordinator.
he's like, I like this guy. Or maybe, he's like, we played him in practice all the time and I was a defensive coordinator and we just destroyed this dude. So
they brought over the wide receivers coach, by the way. It was the wide receivers coach, right? Yeah.
Yes.
He's the offensive coordinator. So he has dealt with Jimmy G. Jimmy G wasn't bad. He just was always hurt.
Yeah. It's hard to kind of see through and say what is the real Jimmy G in terms of like, that's an efficient offense. That offense isn't asking him to throw for 300. So with the Jets, like I want to see what kind of weapons he would be outfitted with. And I think they're going to end up cutting Jamison Crowder if they're smart, save a ton of money. I mean, that whole team is like going to be remade in a lot of different ways, especially through this draft. I mean, that's what they waited and they traded and that's the picks that they have. So I see them at 2, either trading down or taking like Penei Sewell or taking I just don't see them taking a quarterback there. But
yeah, it's something as to where, I think the Jets should take Sewell and knock up those bookends, but do they, or do they go wide receiver? Or, like it's just so muddled over there with the Jets and trying to figure out what they could possibly do. All right, so we got our next guy up, Cam Newton.
ooh,
Cam Newton, I actually see back with the Patriots personally. But let's go ahead and let's see where he ends up with the Ninja. Where do you want to see him?
out of the league.
Oh, God.
The
Oh, that would be such a Bears thing to do. That would be 100% Bears thing to do. Re-sign Mitch Trubisky to a 1-year contract, then sign Cam Newton and still have, what's his name, Nick Foles on the books. That would be such a Bears thing to do.
Who is going to be playing for them? Are they just going to run out like 3 tight ends because their wide receiver core? I mean, Robinson's gone. There's no way that dude's sticking around.
Well, they can tag him, right?
I think they can, but with Robinson, like there's been so much that he's publicly said and
No,
vented.
he does not want to be there.
And vague booked. Like he's done every single thing possible to say like, I don't want to be on this team.
I'm sitting there thinking like this is not going to happen, but it's still really funny to think about. This was the funniest one out of them all, is sitting there and thinking that Cam Newton could end up on another team with no receivers and just like some rookie and young tight ends and not actually have any weapons for a second time, except for some deep shots to Darnell Mooney.
We did this stat on our show and I kept bringing it up because I just loved it so much. But if you took all of the passing touchdowns from slot wide receivers this year, so like, different slot receivers, when they threw a touchdown this year, like Jarvis Landry threw one, Cole Beasley threw one, It's as many touchdowns as Cam Newton threw. Like the dude threw 5 touchdowns. What was it, 5 or 8, whatever it was, but it's the same as slot wide receivers.
It was bad. So, all right, let's go ahead and move on to Jacoby Brissett, who I think does actually have a real chance starting. I think that he has an opportunity to end up with a few different teams, and I think these teams that he has a chance to end up with are still on this list. So let's go ahead and kick this next one off. We are going to go with
The Colts goal line running back.
Wait, why are there other teams on here multiple times? The 49ers. Did we already talk about the 49ers? No.
No, we haven't, because I think they're an interesting team. If you mentioned Darnold earlier, maybe as a landing spot there. Yeah, 49ers are interesting.
What if they take Trey Lance and they bring on Jacoby Brissett to be that bridge quarterback?
Yeah,
Also,
Lance
I think I misspelled Jacoby Brissett.
It's all good. I think Lance, most people are saying he needs a year, but there's so many quarterbacks. We probably said that about Justin Herbert and we were all wrong. I think that's an interesting spot, just in terms of like him being the bridge guy. I personally don't think he's a good NFL quarterback. I think he's like a good NFL backup that should be out of the league in a second, but
no, he's Taysom Hill. But before Taysom Hill was Taysom Hill without being Taysom Hill. He's a poor man's pre-Taysom Hill.
I don't want that on my team.
Oh, no, it's something as to where Brissett I actually have, as a good bridge quarterback in Washington, to be honest with you. They don't have an offensive line. They need to make sure that they can have a mobile quarterback back there to escape pressure. It's bad news for Terry McLaurin, but the Washington team as a whole, I think, presents a decent situation. So let's go ahead and hop over to Ryan Fitzpatrick, who might have 1 or 2 years left.
I mean, the dude has to complete his tour of the NFL. He hasn't played for every team yet.
Steelers. Then wait, did we just mention that? Is this Mike's pick?
This is Mike's pick that before he signed off, he basically said if there's one place that would be super fun, one last go around, it'd be Fitzpatrick to the Steelers. And yeah, no, I mean, I think we'd all love it. I think he's a little wild for what they like.
All right, we're totally writing this down. I need to make sure I message Mike to go to 51 minutes because this is perfect. We already talked about it. It's definitely not going to happen because it's way too wild, but it's still kind of funny because Mike wants to see it so bad. All right, let's go ahead and bring up our next player. Oops, I didn't have that prepped. We're going to go with Dak Prescott. God, we already went with the Broncos, didn't we? That's why I put him on here, was to hope that he ended up with the Broncos. But of course.
What's your likelihood he stays in Dallas?
I mean, I don't think they let him go. There's no way. There's no way they let him go, right? Like, they don't have a backup. So earlier in the season, I actually wrote an article where I thought that at the time, after the Cowboys lost Dak Prescott, they were sitting there at like 2-4, I believe. They just lost to the Cardinals and then Washington. And I thought it was an intriguing option as to where they didn't have a very easy schedule, and that offensive line was beat up, and it looked absolutely horrendous. So it was a speculative article based off of the fact that, hey, maybe, just maybe, the Dallas Cowboys could end up with the 2nd overall pick below the Jets. Their defense was horrendous. It just was nothing was clicking over there. Now they figured it out, and they didn't end up with that high of a pick. But at the time, I was like, man, if you sit there and you throw in, or if you trade Dak Prescott to the Denver Broncos, if he does a sign and trade agreement with you, where he gets 2 first-round picks, where you get 2 first-round picks for Dallas. Meanwhile, you have 2 picks over the next 2 years, obviously, and you make an offer where, I don't know, 3 first-round picks to move up 1 spot because the Jacksonville Jaguars were just then getting rumors that Urban Meyer could be a potential coaching candidate, and Urban Meyer has ties because he recruited Justin Fields. So, sitting there and looking at it, if Urban Meyer wanted to move back 1 spot and he got 3 first-round picks over the next 3 years, and all of a sudden you have Trevor Lawrence as the starting quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys, tied to Amari Cooper, by the way, on a rookie contract, tied to Amari Cooper, tied to CeeDee Lamb, tied to Michael Gallup. Like this is just a situation that you can never ignore for fantasy. Like this could be a dream come true. So I was really high on that, but I still think that if any team could make a trade for Dak Prescott, it would be the Denver Broncos, because we know how, although he did relinquish his, GM
Right.
responsibilities, John Elway, if anybody, would make that trade. So let's go ahead and figure out where Dak goes. Washington. That would never happen. Never in a million years would that ever happen. They would tag him. There's no way that Washington would pay him. What do you feel on this? Is this even a possibility? Should we even spend time discussing this?
Not in division. They're just, teams are just too spiteful.
And they wouldn't even pay Kirk Cousins, who was a good, NFL quarterback, bad for fantasy or whatever. It would never happen. I'm going to go ahead and get this one off my screen because that would never in a million years happen. We have up next Teddy Bridgewater, and it's followed up by our last one with Mitchell Trubisky. So let me tag this one in real quick.
Let me say this about Teddy B. My boy, Teddy Two Gloves. On our DFS pod that I did with Matthew Betts for Fantasy Footballers, we try to talk about Teddy Bridgewater every week because we just love the dude and mostly disappointed, if we're honest, in terms of DFS. But we gave him a shout out. He was their official quarterback of the pod, which meant our pod helped out people a couple of weeks. Now we did pretty good, actually.
He had these weeks, man, where he was just like such a great value for DFS. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Interesting.
All right. We got the Patriots, which is actually where I had him slated to land prior to going to New Orleans. And then after he left New Orleans, I thought that the Patriots loved Teddy Bridgewater in the process, and I thought they were going to make an offer for him. Now they still had Tom Brady, but I thought he'd be the perfect fit to sit and wait. Very similar to Drew Brees. So I wasn't upset that he went to New Orleans. Drew Brees stayed another season. I like this fit, but they need to add some talent at wide receiver, and I think that they do. I think that they try to at least, which, historically, Bill Belichick, Bill Belichick's not the most, the best, I guess, talent evaluator at wide receiver. How do you feel about this one?
Teddy B, I just feel like Teddy B is about 2 steps away from not really being in the league, being a backup. I think he's cut after this next year. So I think here's with Billy Belichick. He should have known that Cam Newton was done. The dude was done. And for fantasy, he had some moments, but I think they won't try to go there at all. And just cuttable maybe after this next year, but I think Teddy Bridgewater's got maybe 2 or 3 years left in the league.
All right, we got Trubisky. Last one. You ready for it?
Out of the league, right? That's an option. Just kidding.
No, man, he's gonna be a superstar. He's gonna be a Pro Bowler next year, just like he was in his second year. The second year,
Pro Bowler.
Let's go. All right.
Whoa, that could be interesting.
If they decide to move on from Derek Carr, all right, so let's just say that the Colts win the bid fest, right? For Carson Wentz. But the Bears don't want to stick with, I guess Trubisky's a free agent.
Right.
Yeah, so this would work out perfectly, actually, either way. So the Bears go after. That's interesting. Sorry, I'm literally processing this right now. The Bears end up going after Derek Carr, bring Derek Carr on, and in the meanwhile, they signed Trubisky to the backup for Mariota. They put Mariota on a 1-year deal again, and then Trubisky comes in and crushes it for the Raiders after sitting behind Mariota, who has a very similar play style, with John Gruden as the head coach, being able to mold his quarterbacks. Like, how do you feel about this? I obviously I'm very torn right now. How are you feeling?
You seem moved. You seem ready to rip off your shirt for Mitch Trubisky.
It's weird.
Don't. I'll say this. With Mitch, that would be a coach that I could see fall in love with somebody like Mitch Trubisky, just because John Gruden thinks he knows something when other people don't. I do not think he's a good NFL coach. And who's he throwing it to there? I mean, other than Waller, it's like, I don't know who else is there. Renfro, Ruggs.
Brian
it's
Edwards, wide receiver
Brian
one. Come
Edwards
on.
should have showed up for the 2020 season. He already retired, essentially. That's what it felt like.
I felt the very similar way that I felt about, with Derek Carr, that I felt about Dak Prescott and then Zoolander. They just didn't know how to look left or turn left.
No, he's not an
And-
ambi-turner.
Ambi-turn, exactly. That's exactly how I felt. So sitting there and looking at this, like Dak Prescott would do his reads and never look left. You looked at Derek Carr, he would do his reads and never look left. And that's where Brian Edwards lined up a lot of time. You had Henry Ruggs on the right and in the slot, Nelson Aguilar on the right in the slot, and then you had Brian Edwards just looking left or sitting there on the left. Derek Carr, not an ambi looker. I don't know. It didn't sit right with me when it came to that situation with Brian Edwards. And honestly, I didn't think that he got open or anything. I don't think that he deserved looks. So it's not like he got mistreated or anything there. But it's an interesting thing to think about it. If another quarterback does step in there, if it kind of elevates some of these other players, or if some of these picks like Brian Edwards, like Henry Ruggs, can elevate, Derek Carr next year if he does stay. I don't know. Drives me nuts. But I don't think that Mitch Trubisky is actually the answer there. I just wanted to make it interesting. So we still have the Texans left over. We still have the Colts left over. I think we already talked about the Colts enough. We brought up, of course, Jameis Winston. I might have added it back in on accident. But if the Texans move on from Deshaun Watson, what are we looking at for the Texans? What do you think is their best route to go moving forward?
Man, it's so hard to get a good read on that organization and just figure out like week to week what they even care about, what they're about. So I'm looking at our list that we have in front of us. Like I could see them taking a flyer on Jimmy G as just kind of like a bridge, and maybe they don't address quarterback. Like here's the thing, that organization has
Jimmy
no draft
G would
picks
never
either.
last. Jimmy G would last one game for the Texans. They don't have an offensive line outside of Tunsil.
Dude, that team, I mean, that
Oh,
organization had
it's a
no
mess.
foresight about what they were doing with their cap situation and then with their draft picks. Like there's nothing on the board for them. So I think the Texans, whoever it is, like they just need to pick some veteran, say we're probably going to go 1-15 this year, and then just going to go for a number one pick.
Oh man, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Like I'm befuddled. Like how
Are they the worst team in the league this next year?
Oh, by far, it's not even close. I mean, they were with Deshaun Watson and a decently healthy wide receiver corps, and a few draft picks over the previous 3 years. Like now they're going to walk into the season without how many years of draft picks in the first 3 rounds. So yeah, it's going to be a nightmare, and they don't have a ton of cap space either, which is the craziest part.
Bad.
Like how was it this mismanaged? Oh wait, Bill O'Brien never should have been the GM. He's a great coach. He never should have been a GM ever. I don't think I've ever seen a team mess up the salary cap. And that includes when, Dallas was doing their thing back in like the late 90s, I believe. And then Washington did their thing in the early 2000s. I don't think I've ever seen a more mismanaged team ever than I've seen with the Texans. It's absolutely, it blows my mind.
And the thing is, they're also alienating their fans right now, which is like the worst thing. At least you could have some diehards behind you. Like people are like wanting to run away from your franchise. So yeah, they're just doing a terrible job.
I don't understand it. It's absolutely ridiculous. Is there anybody else that you wanted to sit there and bring up when it comes to the quarterbacks or anything along those lines? You ready to get out of here?
I mean, we could talk about Mike Glennon and how he's going to be out of the league, but that's about it.
Oh man, I think we covered everything quarterback wise. No need to watch ESPN. Just go back and rewatch this episode time and time again. We got you covered on this. Now we appreciate you for coming on, Kyle. Obviously, Steph couldn't make it. Her power went out. Big bummer.
She
but
hits me.
Yeah, that's what she literally tells everybody. Oh, my power went out this time. No, I'm just kidding. She doesn't ever say that. She just comes up with another excuse. So, it's something where she was actually really looking forward to this, and she was looking forward to the game. Unfortunately, she was not able to make it, but hey, we still got you in here. Appreciate you for coming in. Can you let everybody know where to find you?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Kyle_Borg, and all of our content at thefantasyfootballers.com. articles up all the time. A couple shows a week right now. So yeah, check us out. And then all the Dynasty content for our Dynasty Pass, you can get it at ultimatedraftkit.com.
Absolutely love it, man. Love your content. Love everything you guys are doing over there with fantasy footballers. Even if I couldn't be a part of the team, but it's all right. No, I'm just messing with you. It was cool. It's kind of crazy how everything works out. And it's something where I've looked up to the fantasy footballers as a whole for a long time. They kind of set the standard for our industry of how to operate. So great job. Congratulations on your promotion, of course. That's amazing for you and amazing for them as well. They definitely got a winner when it comes to somebody that provides great content and also, manages obviously very well with the show sheets and puts great shows out there. So thank you for coming on. You guys can go find me at, I still have Trubisky's name up. My bad. You guys can find me at FF_intervention. Once again, that's FF_intervention. You guys can find us at joinourcircle_, where things are just going crazy. We have, I believe, 13 articles that are going out within the next 10 days or so. At least that's what's planned, and 3 or 4 quick shots minimum. It's been nuts. We appreciate you guys for coming in. Make sure y'all check us out, and thank you guys for letting us intervene with your fantasy football life. We're out.